In this video, I'm going to be discussing the major shakeups going on in TNA wrestling right at the moment. Now, right first, I'm going to discuss two things that aren't rumors, then discuss a few things that might be new creative switches within TNA that are at this moment that can just be best called rumors since they haven't been verified, and none of those changes have happened quite yet. Now, the first thing being, before I even get into the two creative staff members that have been released from TNA, I gotta discuss the one thing, how this might have even occurred and why it's happened. Now, I know a lot of you already know about the whole, infamous phone call that happened on the Bubba Love Sponge show about two and a half weeks ago on his program. And on that program, it was some TNA employee that was under protection, so you couldn't understand his voice. Well, you could understand what he was saying, but his voice was on protection. And within that call, it was stated that Jeff Jarrett and Karen Angle are now living with each other, and Karen and Kurt's kids. Obviously, Karen has the kids, and they are moving in with Jeff Jarrett. Now, when I first heard that, I was like, okay, this is complete work. But now with some of these major shakeups within TNA, and especially one of the creative departures from TNA, I don't know. This whole, thing with Karen Angle and Jeff Jarrett might actually be true. But the one thing, let me state my opinion on the whole Jeff Jarrett and Karen Angle thing. That shouldn't even be no, point of Jeff Jarrett losing control in TNA and Kurt Angle trying to get creative control in TNA. If that, creative thing of him trying to, use this as a power play to get more control in TNA is actually true. And the thing is, I'm pretty sure that this thing might be true now, or maybe just the timing of the creative shakeups is the reason why it's starting to look like maybe that was actually true. But the whole Jeff Jarrett and Karen Angle thing shouldn't even matter. It was outside the workplace. Kurt Angle and Karen Angle were separated, and they were getting ready to have a divorce be finalized anyway, so it shouldn't matter no matter what. Now, obviously, some people were to say, okay, Jeff Jarrett, he should have not gotten involved with Karen Angle due to the fact that he's one of the he's pretty much the boss of TNA, and Kurt Angle's one of his employees, and it might not be the best thing for him to get involved with, but that shouldn't matter. It's outside the workplace. It's not like, Jeff Jarrett and Karen Angle were having an affair while, Kurt Angle was still married to Karen Angle. Now, if that happened, yes, Jeff Jarrett would be completely at fault for that, and that would be a complete dick move for him to do, but you can't blame him for this. And the thing is, Dixie Carter is trying to get Jeff Jarrett's share of TNA. That's what is being reported. Now, as far as the departures from TNA, as far as creative, one of the major shakeups is someone that's been a part of TNA since 2003, and that is Dutch Mantell, and he's been pretty much the person involved in TNA that's really, with Vince Russo, has really done a lot of terrible booking ideas and decisions over the years. So this is a good move for TNA to get rid of him. Now, the next thing you need to do is get rid of Vince Russo. Now, it's been reported, I think the other day, that Jeff Jarrett is still with the company and still is within TNA. That was reported from Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer newsletter. He reported Jeff Jarrett still with the company, but he has a huge number of detractors within TNA, so his job might be in jeopardy, and Dixie Carter, obviously, it's still being said she might try to get full stake within TNA, which I think if you do some things like you already got rid of Dutch Mantell, the other creative person, well, not creative person, but the other person that got released that kind of had close ties with Jarrett was Savio Vega. He was there pretty much as a road agent. All he was doing was helping out the Knockouts division after Scott D'Amore wasn't there anymore. And pretty much ever since then, the Knockouts division has went downhill ever since Scott D'Amore. And not only Scott D'Amore, but Gail Kim left TNA. It's pretty much gone downhill ever since, and definitely needs a completely revamp of the Knockouts division and TNA as a whole. Now, you already got rid of Dutchman, so you got rid of him. Jeff Jarrett, I would say Jeff Jarrett, I don't like him on screen, but if he stays behind the scenes and he doesn't put himself over as a world champion all the time, I actually don't mind him too much. Vince Russo, I think you need to get him as far away from TNA as you can if you don't want this company to go out of business. And now it's looking like Dixie Carter actually wants to finally make some changes within TNA. Now, the one thing as far as the huge rumor within TNA, who TNA might be interested in, or who TNA might be looking at to be, kind of the new head creative guy, is maybe Paul Heyman. Now, his name's been thrown around backstage in TNA. Now, this right here, if Paul Heyman could come into TNA and pretty much revamp the whole entire product and, cut some of the talents and pretty much have full range with the company, TNA probably could turn around and probably improve, and will actually not go out of business within another year or two, because they keep going the direction they're going in right now. I don't care how much money the Carters have. If they keep doing this, and a year or two, the ratings are still stagnant, they're still at 1.1, a 1.0, and aren't getting any higher, and the buy rates are plummeting, they're not going to keep throwing in money into TNA if that's the case. So they need to make some, dramatic changes within TNA, and Paul Heyman will be a guy to make, the great changes within TNA. Now, he's got a few detractors in TNA as far as Dixie Carter, when she's been even thinking about maybe doing this idea or whatnot, is, Team 3D. They were former ECW guys, and there are other former ECW guys within TNA that obviously, due to some of the things Paul Heyman did, pretty much being real cheap to his employees and not paying them or whatnot, obviously he has a lot of bad stories from them that they are telling Dixie Carter. But the one thing Paul Heyman has is a couple stars, big stars within TNA. Well, one of TNA's biggest stars, Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle is a supporter of the idea of maybe bringing him in. Bobby Lashley, TNA and Spike TV probably view him as a big name, so obviously they'll take some stake into what he thinks. And Mr. Kennedy, obviously he's not in TNA quite yet, but most likely after his 90-day non-compete clause ends in September, he's obviously going to end up in TNA, and that'll be a guy TNA and probably Spike TV will want to push very far. So he's got three guys right there that really help him. Sean Devari's another guy, but I wouldn't even throw him in there. TNA, he wouldn't really probably care too much what he thinks, but someone like, Kurt Angle, they really want to appease Kurt Angle as much as they can. Pretty much they'll do anything to please him. And if he says some good stuff about Paul Heyman, might bring him in. Now, the one thing Paul Heyman stated about this, he's even stated that the chances of this are slim to none at all, due to the fact that Paul Heyman, he kind of wants to have not creative, somewhat creative control, for the sake that he wants to, have full range and full capabilities what he does. Revamp the product as a whole, the in-ring product as well, put emphasis on certain things, and pretty much have control of the overall creative booking out of anything in TNA. And it has been stated that he doesn't think Dixie Carter will allow him to do that. Now, if I was Dixie Carter, the way the company's going right now, it's not going to hurt getting Paul Heyman. And the one thing is, everyone stated about Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman is a very creative mind. If Paul Heyman, if he wasn't in charge of the money financing of ECW probably would have survived. That was the problem. He's a great creative genius, but as far as the finances of a company, do not let him handle that. So if you just don't let him handle any of that and you just have him handle creative, that'd be great. And just get rid of Vince Russo as well, and maybe your company will turn around. Now, the one thing I got to ask some of y'all is, do you think it's too late for TNA to make these changes? Do you think it's a year or two late for TNA to try to revamp their product and change it around? Now, it's not really to the level where they're WCW late 2000 or their last 3 months in 2001, but they're very close to that, since pretty much all the pay-per-views this year from TNA have either been average, piss poor, or just in between, maybe okay, maybe decent, but haven't been anything that people will be like, you got to see this pay-per-view. And even some that's been very terrible, like Victory Road or like Destination X, that they had 2 good matches on Destination X, but the rest of the cards hurt it so bad that even those 2 matches were pretty good overall, they even hurt that pay-per-view. So they really need to change the TNA direction they're going in. Now, things they need to do is pretty much put more emphasis on the X division. Make the tag team division seem like it was important back like it was in 2004, 2005, and even 2006. Make it seem important yet again. Now, TNA, I will say your tag team division isn't completely terrible. It makes WWE's tag team division, your tag division definitely puts WWE's tag division to shame, but that's not really saying much. That's like saying you got 3 or 4 tag teams and WWE only has one. Obviously, the company has 4 tag teams are obviously going to be the better division, obviously. And but they still need to improve it a little more. I would say, sign maybe some guys from the independent scene and put them together as a tag team, or get someone like the Young Bucks if you can. I know they're working at Ring of Honor now, but if you want to, actually push the Motor City Machine Guns, I don't know why you haven't been doing anything with them. LAX, I don't mind the little thing you're doing right now with the singles ranks with Homicide X Division Champion and Hernandez getting kind of a mega main event type push right now. I don't really mind that, but I think they're much better as a tag team within TNA, since you can do very good stuff with them. And the Motor City Machine Guns, Beer Money, they're probably one of the very best things of TNA right now. Team 3D, they're way past their prime. And the one thing with TNA is, I know they'll say, people say, well, no matter what they change it to, people like me or other people will not, put out money to buy the pay-per-view. Well, that's completely untrue. I know True Slayer, he did a video a couple days ago discussing one thing within, about TNA that, about the whole pay-per-views, that if the product actually delivers, people will actually buy it. Now, I know a lot of people get it, the pay-per-views from either downloading a torrent of it or watching a stream of it, but I agree with what True Slayer said. If the product's actually good enough, if the product's so good, no matter what, even if people could watch it for free, they will actually pay money for it. I mean, that's why, I do it with Ring of Honor. I like Ring of Honor's product so much. It means I can watch it free, but I would much rather support it, since that will obviously keep them in business. Same with TNA back in the from 2002 to 2007, up until Hard Justice 2007. That was really the point within TNA that I really started, losing faith within TNA as far as what their product was. Now, late 2006, 2007, in early 2007, they were starting to do some things. I started, questioning what kind of direction are TNA going in, but I still kind of supported them. Then they had a show like Hard Justice 2007, a really terrible show, probably easily TNA's worst pay-per-view of all time. Now, I know some people might argue Victory Road might have been worse. I don't agree with that, even though both were terrible pay-per-views. I view Hard Justice 2007 as even worse, but Victory Road's probably the closest thing we've seen, probably as bad as Hard Justice since Hard Justice in August of 2007. I'll agree with that. And a pay-per-view like that, maybe stop, pretty much getting TNA pay-per-views, pretty much every month. I got all the weekly pay-per-views, and up to that pay-per-view, I think maybe there might have been 1, maybe 2 monthly pay-per-views I even missed from TNA, and I actually, enjoyed the product at that point. Then that pay-per-view happened. Pretty much everything started going downhill after that. Kind of, gave TNA a chance at Hard Justice 2008. That failed, so 2 back-to-back pay-per-views pretty much failed there. Then the last TNA pay-per-view I ever even ordered was Slammiversary from 2008, mainly due to the fact I wanted to see AJ Styles and Kurt Angle really bad, and it looked like it was actually a pretty good pay-per-view. And I say that pay-per-view wasn't too bad, but you pretty much haven't got anything from TNA that makes you say, you got to buy these pay-per-views. If you revamp your product, put stuff on pay-per-views that people would actually go out their way with, actually, make your Knockouts division as good as it was when Gale and Amazing Kong were having their feud. If you do that, make the tag division as good as it was within the early years within TNA. Make the X division seem completely different than anything else. Make it actually seem very important instead of just, a throwaway, cruiserweight title, which it's pretty much represented as now. So you got to, make that title seem important. You just got to make every title within your company seem important if you actually want to make your company seem different from WWE. Make your tag team division seem deep. Make your tag division deep. Make it actually mean something, unlike WWE. Make your X division, make it seem like the center point within your company. Make it be one of the things that showcase why your company is different from WWE. That's the main thing TNA needs to do, and I've pretty much, probably ever since I started doing videos on YouTube back in October, November 2007, and a lot of other people have stated, TNA, if you actually want to succeed, there's only one thing you really got to do, and that's be different from WWE. If you be different from WWE, but at the same time, try to be different from WWE, then kind of utilize these big names you got, like the Booker T's, the Kurt Angles, the Stings, and utilize them in a way where you kind of start, building up your young stars. And that's the one thing TNA really needs to do is make themselves seem different from WWE. Put over their younger stars. Actually give them a chance, because they haven't really gave their younger stars a chance. I mean, it's a complete joke that, Samoa Joe had a 6-month title reign last year, and I'm probably, I'm a huge fan of Samoa Joe, and I really didn't care those whole 6 months he was champion. They didn't do anything. He had it for 6 months, but it was probably almost as important as CM Punk's first title reign, or as what it meant. It didn't mean anything, either one of them. And that's, a complete shame that Joe had the title for 6 months, and it didn't even, mean anything. And then you need to stop having Sting go over at Bound for Glory. Hopefully we don't see that this year, even though it doesn't look like Sting will go in there as world champion and walk out. But I didn't think that the last 2 years, but that happened. And hopefully it doesn't happen this year. Hopefully we get someone like AJ Styles walking in, because I felt, they kind of, did something good at Slammiversary with kind of teasing AJ Styles would win the belt there. Because I would much rather see AJ Styles win in a singles match instead of like a gimmick match like King of the Mountain, even though it would have been good for it to be there, happen at that pay-per-view, and not have done that whole, Kurt Angle, Samoa Joe swerve they did at the end of that match. Hopefully they have like Kurt Angle and AJ Styles at Bound for Glory. I think, put them two in a main event at Bound for Glory, have AJ Styles go over, and have them go at it for like 30 minutes. A match like that could really showcase why you are completely different from WWE, and put more emphasis on your X division, make your tag division, deeper than what it is. It's not bad, but it needs to be a little more deeper, and needs to maybe have a few more teams, and utilize, LAX and the Moses Machine Guns more as a tag team instead of singles competitors. Even though I like all 4 of them as singles competitors, but I think they work both teams better as tag teams than singles competitors. Now, I know in this video I kind of rambled a little bit, but I kind of, had to throw out a few things as far as what I think TNA needs to do as far as all these, creative decision changes within the company. Now, I would love to see Paul Heyman come to the company. Now, I think it might be able to revamp TNA. Now, the one thing is, it might be a year or two late to do it, but it won't hurt TNA to make any type of changes. And Paul Heyman is a creative genius. He could really, turn TNA around. He could maybe bring TNA back to how great it was from 2002 to 2005. Even 2006 wasn't even that bad. Hell, if he could get it back to how TNA felt back in 2006. TNA in 2006 wasn't one of their best years, but hell, it's been much better than what we've seen in 07, 08, and this year. So I'd much rather see it back to that. Now, it still needed now, the one thing is, now TNA always has had problems putting over young talent. That's the one thing I'm not going to lie, that during 2002 to 2006 they put over young talent, but I think they did a slightly better job with it. And even though they had guys like Kevin Nash, DDP, Jeff Jarrett, and all those guys in the main events, they made everything else within their company so great that you kind of could look away with what they did, with the title that month. The X Division matches were so good, the tag division was so good, and everything else was, booked very good within TNA, that you kind of, looked away from that. Then when they started, making the tag division weak and the X division not meaning what it used to be, that's when, you kind of notice all the problems within TNA as a whole. And, yeah, that's it for this video. I just want to come on here and talk about the major shakeups that are going on within TNA. But they already got rid of Dutch Mantell, so that's a good thing. Just need to get rid of Vince Russo next. Savio Vega. Don't know what's going to happen with the Knockouts division now, is who's going to be in control of the Knockouts division. Maybe since they got someone like Victoria in there, now known as Tara within TNA, she's kind of a veteran as far as a women's wrestler, so they could maybe have her do it. Maybe bring in Nora Greenwald, a.k.a. Molly Holly, have her, kind of train the women's wrestlers, or, someone like Jacqueline. I don't know if she's still within TNA or not. But if she is a part of TNA, that could be someone that could kind of help out the Knockouts division, or get someone, else. That's really not the huge thing. Savio Vega, that really doesn't matter. He's been released, but it's really interesting to see who's going to be in control of the Knockouts division, because they definitely needed to have someone new in control of the Knockouts division, because this really hasn't been nothing more than, I would say, the WWE women's division, kind of a little better, but not by that much. And yeah, that's it. Peace. Kurt's kids obviously Karen has the kids, and they are moving in with Jeff Jarrett. Now, when I first heard that, I was like, okay, this is complete work. But now with some of these major shakeups within TNA, and especially one of the creative departures from TNA, I don't know. This whole thing with Karen Angle and Jeff Jarrett might actually be true. But the one thing, let me state my opinion on the whole Jeff Jarrett and Karen Angle thing. That shouldn't even be no point of Jeff Jarrett losing control in TNA and Kurt anyway. So it shouldn't matter no matter what. Now, obviously, some people were to say, okay, Jeff Jarrett, he should have not gotten involved with Karen Angle due to the fact that he's one of the he's pretty much the boss of TNA, and Kurt Angle's one of his employees, and it might not be the best thing for him to get involved with, but that shouldn't matter. It's outside the workplace. It's not like, Jeff Jarrett and Karen Angle were having an affair while, Kurt Angle was still married to Karen Angle. Now, if that happened, yes, Jeff Jarrett would be complete. In this video, I'm going to be discussing the major shakeups going on in TNA wrestling right at the moment. Now, right first, I'm going to discuss two things that aren't rumors, then discuss a few things that might be new creative switches within TNA that are at this moment that can just be best called rumors since they haven't been verified, and none of those changes have happened quite yet. Now, the first thing being, before I even get into the two creative staff members that have been released from TNA, I gotta discuss the one thing, how this might have even occurred and why it's happened. Now, I know a lot of you already know about the whole, infamous phone call that happened on the Bubba Love Sponge show about two and a half weeks ago on his program. And on that program, it was some TNA employee that was under protection, so you couldn't understand his voice. Well, you could understand what he was saying, but his voice was on protection. And within that call, it was stated that Jeff Jarrett and Karen Angle are now living with each other, and Karen and Angle trying to get creative control in TNA. If that creative thing of him trying to use this as a power play to get more control in TNA is actually true. And the thing is, if I'm pretty sure that this thing might be true now, or maybe just the timing of the creative shakeups is the reason why it's starting to look like maybe that was actually true. But the whole Jeff Jarrett and Karen Angle thing shouldn't even matter. It was outside the workplace. Kurt Angle and Karen Angle were separated, and they were getting ready to have a divorce be finalized.